no. There we go. Is it? Oh. Let's see. Get a different view. Maybe. There we go. Say hi, Malak. Is it Malak? Malak? I'm not sure how to say it, but what's up? Q? No problem. No problem. Figured I'd just show the tank. It's been a couple of days. Again, I have been slacking on videos extremely bad just because of it being summer and doing summer activities with the family and everything. So between maintenance on the tank and family time, the videos aren't really being put out like they should, but that's all right. Got a ton of it's algae growing on the back over here, but figured I'd just do a little bit of a different view of the tank than what normally is on here. Had a lot of coral warfare going on. A lot of stuff is growing into each other, so you might not be able to see it, but the Setosa has been fighting with the acro that's right next to it. Out back, the green slimer's been fighting with a Monty, and out front, my Blastos were overrunning another set of Blastos, so quite a bit. I also had to frag off a pretty decent sized piece of my Setosa, as it was too close to the glass over here on this side. I couldn't get my scraper through, so quite a few different things going on with the tank. But other than that, it's kind of just in like coast mode. Also, my GSP has been off and on closed up over the last week and a half, 2 weeks now. So I haven't checked any parameters yet. I should probably do that. I just haven't done it. See if maybe something's going on that I'm not like aware of just yet. But what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna lie. I think it's an absolute. Why is it doing this? Oh, hold on a second. I'll be right back. Yeah, this is a bit of a terrible view. Maybe I should go get my tripod. But if you guys have any questions, if you're watching, or if you want to just say anything, you don't have to have questions. But why is all this popping up? This doesn't make any sense. Confusing me. Are interesting. Alright. Let me see here though. I got. So. That's the new frag that I had to take off the Setosa out back. Man, I wish you could definitely. Maybe. I don't know if you can. No. How about no filter? But, so you get the Setosa frag right there. As you can see, a little bit of the coral warfare going on up there. Let's see if I can't zoom it in on it. GSP on the back wall is completely closed up. Again, not sure what's going on with that. Haven't looked into it yet. Probably should, just haven't. Oh my gosh, what is going on here? Thank you. This bit of Blastos up front, right there in the middle, was basically getting smothered by the other one. So I'm going to have to take it off and put it on a frag plug here soon. I just haven't done it. That's, at least time with hands in the tank. I just haven't done that yet, so. But. Is it help on this side? Kind of. Not really, but kind of. Also got my fair share of pests that still need to be taken care of on this tank. Yeah. The bubble algae is not that it's like getting out of control, because it's not. It's just it's starting to pop up a little bit more in some more places, so something that I'm gonna have to look into addressing. I do have 2 emerald crabs in there, so I should be all right, but sometimes they won't eat it unless it's like popped, I guess you would say. So, and I know a lot of people will say don't pop it or whatever, but I've never had an issue with it popping and like going nuts. But it's usually when it's like unattended, and then all of a sudden you see big patches, and then it's really hard to contain after that. So. Let's see if we can't get him swimming out more. What's up, Mick? I'm jealous of crystal clear tanks. Mine has too much algae. Yeah, I can't really say what it is that makes it crystal clear, but thank you for the appreciation of clear water. The problem is right now is the glass. I haven't scraped the glass in probably, I don't know, a week now. So there's definitely some algae on the glass, but what do you have for algae? Do you have like hair algae, bubble algae, algae in the water? Because there's some things that could also, it definitely depends. Oh, hair algae, yeah. If you can get your hands on an urchin, hair algae, they eat some hair algae pretty good. Also, if you're able to take out your rock, you could give it some spray with peroxide. Like if you have a little spray bottle, put some peroxide in it, spray it, let it sit for literally 5 minutes, and then give it a quick rinse in some old tank water. I'd do it on like a day when you do water changes, but you'd be surprised how much of that stuff is gone the next day just off of some peroxide spray. I used it when I had an outbreak of sea lettuce. I'd take one small rock and do that, and quite a bit. But using Reef elements for phosphate just now. Also, those are scrambled egg zoo polyps, I see. Yes, those are scrambled eggs. They are one of the 3 nuisance zoas that are in this tank, I would say. I wouldn't say that they're nuisance, but they grow very fast and engulf the bases of my SPS. So, the zoas, the purple monsters, and I think the other ones are fire and ice. I can't tell if those are fire and ice out front. The red with like the blue centers and the pink. But those are the 3. They tend to just mow stuff over in this reef. So scrambled eggs were the first one. Like, I wouldn't say the first ones to go in the tank, but they were really the first ones to start taking off. And they've probably been, I've probably taken 2 or 3 frags out of here now of those. But the purple monsters those are ridiculous. There's 2 frags out front right now. And they're actually all closed up right now. Something just went over them over here, but they grow so fast. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't even Like if you have an area where you can put some purple monsters, yeah. Yeah, hermits do that. They tend to get underneath stuff and pop them up, and I'm not saying that they're doing it on purpose. It's just the way that they pick at stuff. But you got to kind of be diligent on like what's going on in the tank and gluing them back down. But how come my candy cane coral is dying? It could be a number of things, but candy canes are pretty hardy, so for me, it's a hard thing to answer the question of why they're dying. This candy cane that you see, literally within a week of me putting it in this tank, it shredded like all the skin right up to the top of the polyps. I just did 2 water changes weekly for like a month and a half, I believe, and put it down low and out of the flow, and it grew all its skin back and started to split heads, and now you see it. It's kind of hard to see right here, but I'll show you. That started off as 3 polyps, and now it's roughly the size of a softball. It's not obviously all the way around, but half of a softball. So, I'd do some testing and see what's going on with the tank. If nothing's out of the ordinary, check your water source, where things are coming from. You could have like bad filters in your RODI, or if you buy water from a local fish store, they could be having bad water. It could be a ton of things. So, any advice for lowering elk in my tank? Currently reading a spike of 14.6, and it's causing a lot of corals to kind of shrivel. Lowering alkalinity too quickly is just as bad as alkalinity going up. If you can keep your alkalinity right where it is, then you shouldn't have a problem. I would stop dosing if you're dosing something to get your alkalinity to go up, but I wouldn't worry about it going down too quickly. You really don't. It's not something you want to go up fast or go down fast. So if it goes up, you want it to go down slow over, you're talking minimum to get back down to normal. I would not even a month to get back to whatever your norm was. This reef has been all the way up to 13.5 and had no issues because I didn't try to correct anything. I kind of let it settle out. That being said, if your alkalinity just keeps raising and it's not being eaten up by your corals, then you should stop dosing whatever's causing your alkalinity to go up. Every single one I've owned has not done well. All my other LPS corals are doing great, but the candy cane is turning into its skeleton. Yeah, I can't really, like I said, I can't really give advice on like what I'm doing specifically, because all I do is I do my water changes weekly, and I top off with Kalkwasser in my auto top off. I do feed Acro Power to the tank daily. Gets like 5 milliliters of Acro Power on a dosing pump daily, but that was long after this coral has thrived. So I can't say that that is like the reason why it's thriving. But what I did to correct my issue at the beginning was to do extra water changes. I'm not saying that's going to fix yours, but that could be an issue. I've had my tank 1 year, done an ICP test, and turned out I had high zinc and phos. This tank has never... I've never had ICP done on the tank. And not that I think there's an issue with ICPs, but I think there's an issue with chasing numbers in this hobby. And when you start doing ICPs, you start seeing numbers on things that you don't usually, check and maintain, and you start trying to adjust when these corals are very easily adaptable to whatever conditions you're giving them. It's just whether or not the conditions stay consistent. Again, every single tank is completely different, so it could be a vast majority of things that are going on with it. And, if you do have issues where, like, everything is just dying and you can't figure it out, then I do agree with an ICP test. But for me, I wouldn't say I try to stay away from, like, testing altogether. I tend to watch what the coral look like. If the coral looking good, I tend to know that everything's going all right. And I know that corals can show signs, 2-3 weeks after something happened, and things can be back to normal. But that's what I tend to do. I see the tank pretty much daily, and I just keep an eye on what's going on. I also keep getting some brown dust type thing that grows on the sand. The more intense I put my lights. Any thoughts? It also grows on the glass pretty fast. If you're having like a greenish brown film, you probably got high nitrates. You could probably feed a little less and do maybe a heavier water change, or do more water changes. But that's obviously not guaranteed without testing. I would see what your phosphates and nitrates are at for testing, and then go from there. If you can lock down your nitrates and phosphates, you'll eradicate quite a few things, like issues in your tank. So torch corals were dying fast, so paid for the ICP instead of killing corals. Yeah, it's a good idea. My thing is like I said, I've always, if there's an issue and I know I have a good water source, like coming from my RODI, and I know my salt is solid, I usually just try to, I guess you would say, get as much percentage of the water changed out over a period of time as I can. And it's not a guaranteed fix, it never is, but it seems to help out for me. And this is also a very small tank. This is a 13.5 gallon tank, so you do 2 gallon water changes twice a week, you're really pulling out a lot of water. And I know that's not really easily done for bigger tanks, so it's not something that I recommend it as best as much as you can. If you can do your water changes to get stuff out, it definitely helps on, if there's like a pathogen in the tank, you can cut it basically in half if you do a 50% water change. But every tank is so different. If you can do an ICP test and figure out what's going on, 100%. Got a clown stuck in my weir box. Break out the net, I guess. Yeah, clowns are pretty weird. I have 2 clowns in this tank, and from the very first day I put them in this tank, they've been up in the back corner right underneath the return. They've never left it. They've just sat there the whole time. Only watching because I thought I saw acans, but are those acans on the bottom right? Those are actually blastos, but there is acans in here. I'll show you real quick. So I have acans right underneath that SPS, some red, green, and they call it a circus, but it's not really. It's more like just orange. But are you out of Maine? Yes, I am. I'm out of Western Maine. I live in the Rumford, Mexico area in Western Maine. I have a 60-gallon tank. Should I do a 15-gallon water change every week? Is that enough, or too much, or too little? Whatever you do for your water change, whether it be every 2 weeks or every week or every month, however you do it, just stick to that plan and stay consistent. I don't think it really comes down to how much you do versus how consistent you do it. Um, Now, if you're trying to take care of a problem, just double your water changes of whatever. Like if you're doing a 15-gallon water change weekly, do two 15-gallon water changes weekly. Is it going to eat up some salt and water? Yes, but for me, it's helped in the past. Whenever I have an issue going on in the tank, I tend to water change more frequently to help with what's ever going on. Is it guaranteed to fix? No, but for me, it's helped in the past. Beautiful tank. Much love from the Philippines. Thanks, Brent. Gorgeous tank. What lights are you using? These are, which is funny because these lights are cheap Amazon lights. They are Night Crew Hyper Reef. It's a 50 watt on this tank. My buddy has a 100 watt on his 32, and they grow everything. I mean, there's Garth Bonsai in there, there's Oregon Tort, there's Forest Fire Digi, there's Bubblegum Digi, there's Green Slimer, there's Grafted Setosa. I have just a red Montipora in the back. It grows them all. Like, for a light that's $100 with a controller, I think it was $150 with a controller. It's amazing. They are. I recommend them to everybody. So, hi, hope you're well, dude. Quick question, please. Can you totally deplete nitrate with vodka dosing? I've never vodka dosed, but from my understanding, yes. If you put too much of a carbon source in the tank, it can eliminate nutrients. So with carbon dosing, you want to, if you want to do it the right way, you should do it in small increments and be testing frequently to see what's going on in the tank. Again, I've never done it, but I've seen good results of people who do carbon dosing, and Tropic Marin has a decent system right now where, like, I think it's like three different parts or whatever. So there's quite a few different ways to be able to do it. I'm also using 50 watt night crews. What intensity are you using? I do 5% white and 25% blue. So this tank is at 100% blue and 20% whites. Let me just double check though. I gotta check my schedule. I haven't checked it. Yep, 100% blue and 20% whites. I have them on a 12-hour schedule, so they have a 1-hour ramp up and a 1-hour ramp down. I'm right next door in New Hampshire. Got a 20-gallon nano. Your tank is awesome. Thanks, man. Yeah, New Hampshire is literally like a 20-30 minute ride. Well, maybe a little longer. Maybe 30-40 minute ride for me to the border, but that's awesome. It's nice to see people from the area jumping in the chat. So hey, no problem, Crazy Bear. Like I said, I've never done it, but with my next tank, if I need to, and I need to do like a carbon source to be able to take care of it, then I'll deal with that. However, on this tank, I try to stick with the natural approach as much as possible. So water changes if I can, not overfeeding. And if things get out of hand, I have an algae reactor that I built that's in I call it the fish closet because it's just a closet that's behind the fish tank. And that's kind of keeps, like, I have a little mini fridge in there for stuff if I need to keep it refrigerated, and all my random fish gear and food and all that stuff. So Give me 1 second. I'll be right back, guys. If I do 100% blue on my night crew, the brown stuff on the sand will be horrific. Yeah, so check your, what's it called? Check your nitrates and your phosphates. See where your nutrients are at. If you're having excess blooming of algae, you might have an issue with nutrients. That being said, your tank, depending on what your tank age is, if your tank is new, it might just be dealing with the ugly phase of some brown dust in the tank. So, what's your favorite coral? My favorite coral is the Oregon Tort. It's up top, and it's right there in front of the Setosa between that little green acro. Let me see if I can't get you a little closer with my magnifying glass. Not really, but it's always been my favorite. I've loved them forever. It's old school, super pretty, super vibrant, so I don't try to do anything like I'm not one out to go for like the designer corals and stuff. That's not my thing. I tend to go for something that's been in the hobby and super hardy, so that's my favorite, is an Oregon Tort. My nitrates are at 22 and phosphates are at 0.1. So yeah, your nitrates might be a little high. But that's not terrible. 22 is not a terrible nitrate number. So, how old is your tank? Wow, 8 months. So it's been up for a while. So, yeah, I mean, if you're still dealing with like brown dusting, tank's just not taking care of the nutrients right now. So there's probably excess nutrients in the system, and then as soon as you turn the light up, they just eat them up. Personally, I'd crank your blues up. This is just, I mean, obviously, if you're having issues, don't do it, but this tank ran blues 100% since day one. Blues should not grow algae as much as your whites. So you can keep your blues 100% and then keep your whites low. And then slowly over time, you can bring your whites up, depending on how much dusting you get. But like this tank does get dusting on the glass quite frequently, actually. So it is definitely happens. But I just need to get a charger for my phone. Wow, man, they are live. Everything in here is alive, yes. There is. Sorry about that. There is no fake coral in this tank. Okay. Sorry. Thanks for the love from India. I see you guys are going through a hell of a heat wave right now. I feel for you. Because for me, whew, be cooking. That'd be cooking me out there. Let me get a little closer for you guys. I have a blue tang and a yellow tang, 2 clownfish, angelfish, so I feel pretty good. Jeez. Is it 40 Celsius is what? I gotta look it up because I'm American, so I don't know this stuff. What did you say? 45 degrees Celsius. That makes a difference. 113 degrees? Good Lord. But, yeah, that is... I mean, we reach 100 here in Maine and, you know, on the East Coast, but that is, like, definitely not the norm. It's usually 80 to 90, upper 90s during the summer times, and, like, humid. It's definitely humid, but... I used to run picos with natural filtration. Basically, I hang on the back fuge with Chaeto, crushed coral, and mangrove. I know it's tougher with bigger tanks, but what's your tank on 100% biofiltration? That's kind of what this tank is. It does have GFO and carbon in a bag out back, but I don't have reactors. This tank runs no skimmer. It just runs filter floss and a DIY algae reactor on the back that has Chaeto growing in it. You can kind of see it. Let me see if I can get my finger. You can see it right there in the background. And honestly, I only have that reactor on for 1 hour a night right now because if not, it will literally bottom out my nitrates. So I believe 100% that with reef tanks, less is more. I really don't think you need all the crazy things, but I mean, a lot of people will say you need a skimmer, you need to have what's it called, like carbon, and you need to do this. And for me, the way less stuff there is to go on in a tank, there's less things that could go wrong. So, like, trying to keep them all, you know, steady and where they need to be. You know, you're talking, especially when it comes to pumps, you got to make sure all your pumps are cleaned and flowing like they should be. It's just, it's way more work than it needs to be. So I believe in 100% biofiltration if you can do it. I've even ran this tank for like a month and a half with absolutely no filter floss whatsoever on it. So tank may cloud up a little bit because I just noticed that my auto top off wasn't topping off, so it might get a little cloudy here for a second, but thanks, Brent. I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, I've always done the least amount that I have to these tanks. All of my tanks I've had tanks for 15 years, and if I can keep my hands out of it and just let it do its thing, and just stick to my maintenance schedule, then everything else should in time play out and be fine. So what's up, bud? You want to say hi to the guys?
Okay.
Say hi.
Hi, guy.
It's just my son. Came to say hi. What do you want to do?
Don't know.
Yeah. Back when we had to read forums, if that's not the truth. I remember when people would post in the forums about not listening to people on videos because most of the time people on the videos don't know what they're talking about, and read the forums, do your research. I still wholeheartedly believe in doing your research and reading the forums if you can and all that, but it's a different ball game now than what it used to be. So you had an issue going on with your tank, you spent 6 hours trying to find it on the internet. So thanks, Addie. Thank you. Just a little fluval 13.5, nothing crazy. Almost, I guess you would call it a pico, really. It's in the nano pico border, I guess. Very small, but it definitely works, and couldn't recommend this size tank to anybody else more. It's really it really is. I mean, I'm not a beginner, but getting back into the hobby, you can have a lot of fun with this. It's relatively cheap and satisfying, really, because when coral grows in a tank that's this big, it looks vastly different within months, versus like a year's time, I guess you would say. Now this would look a lot more, more filled out if I didn't have to constantly, or I shouldn't say have to, but my bubblegum digi and my forest fire digi, which is right here, my forest fire, it grows so fast that anytime you move like the tubes around in the tank, you're constantly knocking off a frag. So like just the other day, I knocked off another frag on the back. You can see it up back over here. So yeah, I mean, if you're living close to Maine and you want some Montipora frags, just hit me up. Let me know. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I'm burping. And because I have 5 frags. I have, what is that? 3 forest fire digi frags, 2 bubblegum digis, a regular red digi, and a Setosa frag right here. Plus I have 2 purple monster Zo frags, 2 blue tub frags. I got a lot. So what salt do you use? Old school. I use Reef crystals. Always used Reef crystals. Never had a problem with it. So can you bring these downstairs?
It's a bubble.
Yeah, it is a bubble. Yeah, Reef crystals has always been my go-to, so that's what I tend to use. What can I do to lower nitrates? Have my tank running for 7 months, and I managed to control phosphates recently by having a hard time with the nitrates always high. Feed less. That's the easiest way to kill nitrates in a system, is to feed less and do more water change. But if you have to and you can't figure that out, then you can do an algae reactor, a DIY algae reactor, or in many cases, if it's an all-in-one system, you can make one of the chambers into a mini refugium, and grow chaeto in there, and chaeto will definitely eat up nitrates relatively quickly. But if you're having issues with nitrates or even phosphates, then that's a direct correlation of what you're putting into the tank. Nitrates and phosphates come from the food, so you can either dial back your food or increase your ability to remove that from the system. Chaeto, yep, 100% Brent. How often should you feed? This tank gets fed twice a day on an auto feeder, and every once in a while I will break out some frozen and give them a 5-star meal, I guess you would call. I pretty much never feed frozen unless I decide I'm going to feed the corals too. So mostly because 1 cube of frozen will last like 3 days for this tank because it gets fed twice a day already. So if I feed it 1 extra time a day, I can't really feed it much more than that without going crazy and having a bunch of food just flying around. So and 3 days is pretty much the max amount of time I would let any kind of frozen food, once it's thawed in the refrigerator, sit, because after that it gets bad. But yeah, this gets fed twice a day, and what really happens with food is you should be feeding your fish enough so that they can eat it all within, like, you shouldn't see food floating around after 2 minutes of feeding them. All food should be eaten. You okay, Jojo? That's my take on with food. Yeah, like if you can feed your fish multiple times a day, by all means do it, because the fish poop is obviously feeding your corals, but they should be eating it within 2 minutes max of everything being put into the tank. What food do you give to your corals? Honestly, they get mysis in brine shrimp. The only ones I feed are my LPS and my mushrooms. Everything else I do not, because it's pretty much in the water column from fish poop. So it's a mixture of, I can't remember exactly what it's a mixture of, but I know it's the main part of it is mysis and brine shrimp. I do use Reefroids every once in a while, but it's very slim, mostly because it's packed high in phosphates. So if you do it too often, your phosphates will definitely raise, and you'll have a nice little bloom of algae growing, more than likely. But if you have a method of being able to take your phosphates out of the system, then you probably won't have an issue with feeding it. But I really don't ever do that. I kind of just feed the same thing that the fish get feed for frozen. So, and like I said, all the LPS and the mushrooms will eat it. Everything else is just free float around, and if one of the SPS can grab it, they'll grab it and they'll eat it. But I definitely don't feed like the SPS per se. Well, let me go back on that. The tank does dose AcroPower, which is an amino acid. So it gets 5 mLs of AcroPower daily. So I guess in a way I do feed everything, but when it comes to actual like food pieces, the LPS and the mushrooms are the only thing that get fed. My zoas don't, because they never close up and actually eat anything. I don't know what's wrong with my zoas. My buddy's zoas will literally eat a whole mysis shrimp. Mine will just let it sit on top of them, so I don't know. But that's what I use for food. I do not have any frog spawn. Um, I'm not a very big Euphilia fan, but when it comes to Euphilia, if I was to have one, frog spawns and hammers are the only ones I would have. I absolutely do not like torches. Don't ask me why. I'm not a big fan of them. So, um, I mean, I don't get the hype around them myself. That's just me. But um, as for the closest thing to a torch or a Euphilia in this tank, I have my Duncan out front, but that's about it. We can see him right there. Yeah, a lot of people are kind of shocked by SPS and especially, I guess you would say it's I can't even say that you can call it SPS dominant. It's definitely a mixed reef, but I mean, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 different species of SPS in there, so yeah, it's definitely not easy to keep SPS alive in such a small tank. When things can change so quickly, it can go downhill pretty quickly. But no Kenya trees. Not a fan of those either. Had them way back in the day. Can't say I didn't. But the problem with Kenyas is that they tend to drop their branches, and if you have a high flow tank like this tank is, those branches could end up anywhere. And once they're footed, it's kind of hard to get them out. I mean, you can obviously cut them and scrape them, but there's still a little piece left behind, and that little piece will turn into a full-blown Kenya tree if you let it. So I'm more of very colorful frags if I can. Not always, but I tend to stick to the more colorful, easy to keep stuff, which Kenya trees are easy to keep. They're just not as, they don't fit my color scheme that I want as much, but I do have to agree, Brent, hammers over torches 100%. I don't get the hype around torches, mostly because back in the day you could buy a torch colony for $50 and it came with like 44 heads, and now you can't even buy a single head torch for that you could get the same colors for back in the day for $200. So that's just me. And I don't want people to like think that I'm hating on them because they like, you know, what they like, because that's not what I'm trying to do. It's just torches aren't my thing. They have a tendency to sting the shit out of everything. I try to keep, especially in a tank this big, I mean, one sweeper on that would sting half the tank, so. Kenya's, GSP, and Xenias are like toxic girlfriends. Yeah. Well, this tank does have GSP in it. But I have it strictly located on the back wall at the moment. Xenias, when I first got in the hobby years ago, I thought they were the coolest thing, but to me, they're just very bland. Don't really have any good colors to them, and they grow like absolute wildfire. Definitely almost impossible to remove once they're in the tank. And same thing with Kenyas. Like I said, they just drop branches, but out of the three, Xenias are the worst. 100% in my book. GSP is manageable. You just got to be able to keep it in the right spot. Because you can definitely rip off a huge section of GSP if it's on a wall or the glass. And remove it relatively easy. So, be right back. I'm going to go grab a water. Oh, let's see. Always a starter mistake, yeah. They to get you in there, and they sell for cheap, yeah, 100%. I've always liked GSP. And like I said, if you can keep it in a relatively manageable spot, you'll be fine. This tank is actually, over the last few days, you can kind of see it in the back. Let me see if I can't get my finger. So where the pump is, that's all GSP right there. For the last week, it's been on and off, closed up. I don't know if it's like shedding a layer or what's going on. I've blown on it with like a turkey baster and to no prevail. So I don't know what's going on with it. Again, I haven't tested anything this week, but I tend not to do anything if only one coral's having an issue, especially a GSP when nothing else is having an issue and the GSP's having an attitude. I tend to not really care that much. So toxic girlfriends, yep, 100%. But I do like the wavy, like grass-like neon color that it gives. I do. I love that. I've always loved GSP for that. Is it a pain to take care of? Oh, hell yeah, it's a pain to take care of. But just reading a comment here. Let's see that. Posted a video a while ago. It was 6 months ago, I think. And it was, do you need to have expensive equipment to be able to do this hobby? This is what somebody wrote. You need time, a lot of time, and a lot of money and knowledge. And I just don't understand how it's possible without very good, expensive equipment. But congratulations to you if you can make the magic. Thank you. What is it, Martins? Chris Martins, if you're in the chat. But with today, how things are today, you do not need expensive equipment. Especially when it comes to, like back in the day, to buy power heads, it was expensive or you couldn't go really cheap. And if you did go cheap, you had to figure out a DIY method to be able to make that cheap, affordable pump into something that it was never intended to be. But like nowadays, you can buy these Higher pumps for a fraction of the cost of what, say, like an MP series Ecotech or something else. So the lights, nowadays, it's pretty much common knowledge that you don't need like crazy lights for the corals to grow. The corals will pretty much either self-sustain or grow under pretty much any light. That being said, you can really pull the colors out of them with the ability to change the spectrum on them, and you can really dial things in for like growth when you have like a controller for like intensity and stuff. Back in the day, you didn't have that. You had a timer if you wanted to buy a timer. If not, you were turning the light on and off, and that was it. You had one intensity, one spectrum. It came on, and that was it. So to say you need, super expensive equipment, don't think you do. You can do things without all the extra stuff. I've seen very nice, amazing tanks with hang on the back filters. You don't need like a crazy sump and skimmer and all that fancy stuff, but I mean, to each their own. Everybody has their own way of reefing. Mine just happens to be budget minded as much as possible. Comment sounds like a bad tank crash. Probably. I had 2 bad crashes back in the day on my 40 breeder. And really they were just came down to lack of knowledge on certain things. You know, I was in the mindset of everything has to be, you know, bigger is better, and so I decided to have my 40 breeder, and I made my own stand. I did my DIY plumbing. I did DIY sump. Well, in the midst of doing my sump, I siliconed in my glass pieces for my dividers, and basically I didn't let it cure long enough outside of the tank, and during the curing process, so the silicone that I had releases ammonia. Had no idea at the time. Of course, I do that, and I come back from work after a 10-hour shift at the garage I was working at the time, and I walked in, and the whole entire tank was cloudy white. What had happened was I released ammonia into the tank by doing my sump, which is just lack of knowledge, and I basically killed everything in the tank because it had this massive ammonia spike, have no way to be able to take care of it. And so I basically just turned the tank light off, took all the inhabitants out of it. I had one clown that survived, but he only survived for like a week, and then he perished as well. So what I did after that is it went in a blackout period for I think like 8 months. So no light whatsoever, just running the filtration and the pumps all on, letting it establish a very large biodiversity, and I guess you would say. So, good bacteria, all of that, and I can't remember what the second crash was, but I did something dumb again, and it really comes down to just having the knowledge out there and people giving the knowledge out more freely. Back in the day, if you weren't part of a reef group, or if you didn't know where to find the information on the internet, you were just doing it willy-nilly sometimes. And honestly, I like to do DIY stuff, so back then it was perfect for me. But yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of stories come from, bad advice. I remember my first local fish store I went to was like, he wouldn't sell me anything unless I did exactly what he was doing, which was, he had a 6-inch deep sand bed in a 125-gallon tank, and he only ran metal halides, would not even think about T5s, which is kind of crazy to think about now that, metal halides are almost completely gone and T5s are pretty much on their way out, and it's just, it really comes down to just stability, and these tanks will flourish, really. But yeah, I mean, I was the same way back in the day, Brent, just stuck on forums, either trying to learn or trying to, figure out what was going on with my tank, between like the inaccuracies of testing and everything. Like, it's just, so much has changed now, and I feel like, yeah, it's in the better, but at the same time, like, when it comes to testing and everything, everybody's so paranoid about what the number result is going to be out of their test and how to change it before they even really look at, see, what the coral are doing or the fish in general. So it was a slow crash for a month, and I was just, yeah. So I haven't heard halides and T5s for a few years. Yeah, I used to, on my 40 breeder, I had, when they first came out with Kessels, which was, I think it was like 2015, 2014, Kessels were kind of just coming on to the hobby. I did a hybrid style with 2 T5s on the outside and a single Kessel on my 40 breeder. But I mean, T5s will grow coral better than any LED that we have right now. It's just the fixtures are freaking massive and they eat up energy quite a bit. So, not to mention you got to replace bulbs every year. So, they're not easily as adjustable, but I mean, T5s don't mess around. Halides don't mess around either when it comes to growing. It's just their ability to be changing is ridiculous. Coloration wouldn't be the same just by looking at it, but like if you had, so like this tank right now is under just blues. I think it's like 80 or 75% right now because the lights are ramping down, which I'll have to jump off here in like 10 minutes because of that. They're gonna be, actually they're less than that. They'll be at 0 here soon. But the coloration wise of the coral is actually better because they get better light, like full coverage light all day long. So the corals actually look better, but because of how bright it is, the corals look less colored up. I don't know if that's, you can understand what I'm saying, but like if you took a T5 fixture and you could set it up so that you have just actinics on or blues at like the end of the day, it would look ridiculous because there's really no hard shadows with a T5 light setup. When you got an LED and your single source point of light is, straight down and it's not like off to the sides or all that. So like these have hard shadowing on them. So if you were to cut off, say like that branch right there of that Montipora, the bottom side of that branch is going to be like faded. Let me see if you can see it over here on this one. So a little too much. But you can see that coral that's on the back side of the rack. It's got a fresh plug. It's got like that white patch on it. It's not dead, it's faded because that was the bottom part of a branch. T5 has less of that because it has so much light coverage that it's getting light from all directions. So LEDs are doing a bit better job of that now. You got like the blades and all of that are, further spreading out the light and being able to have a light source coming from multiple directions. But LEDs are, that's the problem with LEDs is you look down, top down, looks amazing. But a lot of the side view is not the greatest because sometimes they have hard shadows. Do they still grow? They still grow. They grow coral, no problem, but they do have hard shadowing. And metal halides is even like much more light being penetrated in the water. So with T5s, the light spreads more, but it's diluted the visual colors of the corals. Yes, and that's just because of the spectrum of the lights that are being used. So like a lot of LED lights, like lighting is, a lot of people tend to use more blue, which brings out the colors, the fluorescence of the coral. Now, if you go, I'll just do it real quick before the lights go out, so you can see the tank how it is right now. Now, you go more white. This is 100% white, 100% blue that I'm about to put it on. Changes everything. See what I'm saying? So like, this is what a T5 tank would look like, most likely, not guaranteed, but most likely, majority of the day. Because they don't have that heavy blues. So Is it a problem? No. Does it wash out the colors? A little bit. But in reality, the tank still looks really good, and it looks more natural. But a lot of people tend to go towards, especially nowadays, a lot of people try to do the more fluorescent. And then if you go like, metal halides was even brighter. So metal halides were more like this. So this is like 25% blues and 100% whites. So it changes everything, you know. It doesn't really affect the corals. It just affects the way they look. So coloration wise, everything would look super bright if you put it underneath blues, but because a lot of those older lights don't go underneath blues just by themselves, they tend to look different, I guess. And again, nothing wrong with, you know, having T5s versus halides or LEDs, but I wanted to get a coral tank. What kind of question? What if you woke up one day and a coral looked exactly like your face? That'd be interesting because that will never happen unless I put like a mold of my face in there and let the coral grow over it, but you should start a tank. Yeah, my beginner tank back in the day wasn't even a T5 or a halide. It was a compact fluorescent. So that really, I guess you would say, ages me quite a bit. I had a 10-gallon tank with a compact fluorescent light on it, and I was absolutely in love, you know? So it hooked me. I was done after that. Good luck to get more experience. I mean, in this hobby, the good thing is that you're always constantly learning. You're always, I mean, you're never going to know everything. So, but what if? I don't know. It's a weird question to answer, I guess. I guess I wouldn't have anything to say about it. I'd take a picture of it and post it online and say, hey, check out my coral that looks like exactly like my face, just in a coral. It would be money. I mean, you can always start with another small tank, Brent. That's always an option. But I got to get heading out of here, guys. So if you liked, you know, the live or whatever, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to put out more videos. I definitely don't put out enough content, especially during the summer. This being a more of a winter hobby, I guess you would say. Even then, I just got to post more. I just haven't done it. But if you like it, you know, like the video, like the other videos if you have a chance to watch them, and subscribe to the channel. But I will definitely be back on some more lives here coming up, just because they're a little bit easier to get in touch with everybody and stuff. So, but take her easy, guys. Have a good summer. I'm not leaving just like for the whole summer. I'll be back soon, but you know, enjoy your heat wave that a vast majority of the country's going through, and other countries, and get out and enjoy the weather. Later, guys.